Welcome back to Floral Art Online. I'm Kim Bailey and you're watching the Supermarket series where we choose one bunch of flowers from the supermarket or a store and we use those in a design in different ways. This week we're going to use an old candelabra or an old candle structure of some description. This is one, as you will know if you're a regular watcher, I picked up from a charity store. It had the round decorations on it were already there. What I've done as well is I've sliced some Banksia and glued that on. So you could use anything that you want to incorporate into your design to glue it on. We're going to use some plastic vials for water sources for the material we use. And we've got today a mixed bunch of flowers. So this is the bunch. And it's got one very large Banksia flower, which is why I've put these additional ones on, and a lot of foliage. So let's see what we can do. We won't be using all of this, so a lot of the greenery, a lot of the foliage will be used in one of the other designs that we do this month, but we'll use the bulk of it so you can see how you can use one or two flowers and a little bit of greenery to make quite a spectacular talking piece for your home. I've sorted out the flowers and foliage that was in that mixed bunch that we got. So we've got this one beautiful Banksia with lots of attached foliage around it. We've got 3 leucadendrons, which are a good shape for this particular design that I'm going to do. We've got a stack of gum leaf, silver dollar gum leaf, which if you've seen one of the previous videos, you'll know that dries really beautifully, and so it's good for arrangements that are going to stay in place for a long time. I did consider using it in this one because that is a benefit of using it here, is that it could sit around for months and months literally, but I've decided that just the shape and the way that the movement in the leaves themselves, the branches themselves, is not going to add to this particular design. We've got some very definite circles, so we will mirror that circular shape in the Banksia, the full Banksia, but we want to also accentuate the vertical line. So that's where the leucadendrons are going to work better in this particular design. So I'll save those for something else. And we've also got this other foliage, and it's got a little bit of a seed head on it as well. And I'll use that, the colours don't work for this particular design. So, and again, it's not the same sort of shape that I'm looking for, the line that I'm looking for in this design. So we'll use them for something else. So we'll discard those and get started. Now, when I do the design, I'm going to focus on this top area here because basically I'm not going to do anything more to this bottom area here. So when you see the rest of the video, it'll be focused on this area here. And then when I'm finished, of course, you'll see the photograph of the complete look of the design. As I said, let's get started. So first of all, I'm going to think about the placement of this magnificent Banksia between these two parts of this particular structure. And in looking at it before, what I thought would work best is to have it so that it came a little bit above this one, but because I want to keep those two empty, I don't want your eye to be caught on them. So I'm just going to turn it around to make sure I've got it in the right spot before I start attaching it. So what we can do is use that foliage to enhance the placement that we've got there. Now you could either use cable ties with this or paper covered wire, and I'm going to use the paper covered wire. Going to attach that now. Now this, I'm not going to use a water source on this. You could, but it doesn't really need it. It will dry slowly and carefully and give you the same sort of colouring. The leaves might go a little bit more silver than they are now. Just making sure that I've got 2 attachments down here at the bottom. And because the back of this is not going to be seen, if you use cable ties, it'd be nice and quick. And you can use cable ties that were in the same sort of colouring. so that they were a little bit less obvious. But this paper covered wire is pretty good as well. And we're going to have one up here, just to make sure that it stays in place. So with those 3 areas of attachment, it's not going to move. Won't matter how much. And then technical term coming now, I've fluffed out the foliage so that it incorporates this other part of the stand. You might just add another one where people can't see it, but just, you know, the more the merrier. We want it to stay in place. So as you can see, that's not moving at all, which is great. So that's those placements. Now we've got these leucodendron that we can have at various heights to just enhance that vertical line of the design, keeping in the colouring that we've got in the foliage. These I will put in vials because although they dry nicely, they do discolour, and so it's not very nice to have them looking like that. This, for those of you who don't know, this is the complete plant. This top section here. Let me see if I can get it open. This bit here that is slightly different colour to the rest is actually what we would look at as the flower head. And if you could see all the way in, I won't open it up because it'll destroy it, but get them in lots of different colours and different leaf tints, and so very useful for creating line in an arrangement that you're doing. Where did you come from? So let me put the vials in and put these placements in, and then you'll see the finished product. Now, as you can see, I've attached the vials to the back of the design, and I've put them in those spots measuring the height that the actual foliage is going to go. So just to show you where that is going to go, I've decided to only use 2. We did have the 3, and I'm only going to use 2, so this one's can be saved for another day. And I've got one shorter one that's going to go there, into that vial there. And we've got this longer one. Now this was the longest of the 3 pieces that I had, but you can see that it's got a little bit of a curve to it. So in placing that, we have to make sure that we take notice of the curve, because if you place it like that, it's going to take your eye out and away from the design, and it detracts from the overall vertical lines that we've created by this design. So we could have it so that it was facing back, but the same thing happens. We see the bend and we follow our eye. Our eye follows straight out of the design. We could have it so that it brought us into the design, or we could have it front facing so that you don't notice it as much. And so I think what I'll do is I'll have it front facing so that it's not detracting from the design. Now, as you can see, I've brought both of those above the metal plates. She said, securing it properly. And kept the foliage around the plates themselves. You could, if you wanted to, put something into those plates that carried on the colour scheme of this particular design, but I'm happy with the way it is. I really wanted to focus on the vertical lines. Now, as I'm standing at the back of it here, we've got one bit of the foliage from the Banksia that's coming back towards me, so I'm actually going to remove that so that it's not detracting from the rest of the design. Ooh. And I will save that for another day because they're great little bits of foliage to use, and that's another thing that you could have, you know, I could glue it on here somewhere or just weave it through, because it's going to dry and colour into that silvery colour the same as the rest of this foliage here, and it might create a little bit of interest, and it carries that foliage through to the bottom. So I'll have a try with that and see if I'll actually use it somewhere else in the design. But that's our design for using less than one bunch, mixed bunch of flowers from the supermarket. I'm Kim Bailey, this is Floral Art Online.